Thank you, Scott. I appreciate Scott's leadership and the entire leadership team. On the back of your packet, there's the 16 persons now with Barry that's on the leadership team. They're doing a phenomenal job, and it's an honor just to get to be a part of the process. Glad you're here tonight. We're going to begin praying seriously starting Sunday and 4 messages in a row, and then we'll have our discernment, our prayer time. So be ready for that. But tonight, this is an exciting night for me. You know, last year, in my opinion, we were choosing between what's right and wrong. And we chose right. We chose correctly. Tonight, we're going to look at 3 very good options. I think we could go in either direction, and we'd be a healthy church down the road. But we are blessed to have 3 representatives here tonight. They've agreed to come. I'm going to introduce Alan Beasley and Jason Green now, and that'll save a little time. So, Jason, you can just follow Alan. And after the break, I'll introduce John Tanner, who represents the Fords. But I've known Alan Beasley for 38, 39 years. We've been in ministry together a long time in North Alabama. Alan is going to come and talk about the Global Methodist Church. He's the lead pastor at Jasper, First Methodist. They have affiliated with the Global Methodist Church. He has been there since 2011, I think. So he's been there a while and providing great leadership. He is the dean of the cabinet. He is the head, basically the leader of the district superintendents right now, and the Global Methodist Church is forming. So he is in leadership position, doing a great job. For 4 years, 3 or 4 years, he was at Asbury Seminary as director of alumni, and he served several churches here in North Alabama. And I really appreciate Alan's ministry. He loves the Lord and stands for what's right. So Alan's going to come in just a moment and share about the Global Methodist. And then Jason Green's going to follow the question and answer time that Alan has. Jason is a rather new friend of mine. I've known Jason for a few years now. Jason is over at Wesley Memorial in Decatur, Free Methodist Church now. They've been set free. And he is excited. Jason has been a pastor in the Methodist Church for 11 years, and he's in his 3rd year at Wesley. And his spirit identifies with my spirit. I can tell he loves the Lord. So we're blessed tonight to be able to hear from the Global and the Free. Again, after the break, I'll introduce John Tanner, who represents the Forged Network. John will be here just a little bit later. So at this time, I'll turn it over to Alan. Alan, God bless you.
Thank you. Well, thank all of you for coming tonight. It's good to be here. I appreciate the invitation to come. I do have to say that Mike has not only known me for a long time, he knows my family very well. He served my home church and got to know my family, and just never ask him to tell stories about my family, please, because it is a sad thing when he could start telling, I dropped my stuff. Sorry about that. But it's good to be here. So Mike asked me to tell the story about how we affiliated. You need to know that I'm I'm finishing up my 12th year, and this is actually my 2nd time to be appointed to Jasper First. It was my first appointment out of seminary in 1984. I was the associate pastor and youth pastor, and served there, and then came back in 2011. So I knew a lot about the church, and what you need to know about the church is that our church is officially almost 200 years old and has roots in Walker County for almost a quarter of a century, almost 250 years. And they have lived into what it meant to be a Methodist church. And what they have lived into is kind of the big idea of what it means to be connected to the churches. That's in our Methodist DNA of what it means, how you're connected to one another, and how you do ministry through the connection. And they've lived into all the goodness of that for all of these years. And in fact, at one time, Jasper was the center of a district in the United Methodist Church. When I went there the very first time, I moved to the Jasper district. Oddly, it's the first time I'd ever been in Jasper in my life, and I was appointed there. And so when we got ready to disaffiliate, that was not a great big deal for us. Jasper it's in Walker County. It's a very conservative county, and I serve a very conservative church, and I knew where we were headed in disaffiliation. So we spent our time, where do we go from here? What does it look like for us? And what I decided to lead our church into is the Global Methodist Church, because I'd been involved with his predecessor, the Wesleyan Covenant Association. I knew the people. I knew who was leading it. I knew the people who was creating it. And I was very comfortable that they were creating an entity that was the church, the denomination that I was ordained in and that I joined as just a little infant. I was born in Birmingham, and I was a cradle Methodist, and I tell the story that my mom and dad probably took me by the church on the way home from the hospital just to introduce me to the nursery as a 2 or 3 day old infant. I was that cradle. I mean, and that was the church that I grew up in. That's who we were as Jasper First Methodist Church. And so I made the decision that if I could move us into something that was very similar to what the majority of the people had grown up in and had learned to love, that would be our best choice. And what I discovered was that that our folks just, they weren't, we didn't go through a bad divorce that you might hear a lot of churches did denominationally. We just needed to get correctly aligned, and that's what we knew we had to do. Our church understood that where the denomination went, that we were leaving, was not the church that they joined, not the church that they loved, not the denomination that they had been affiliated with, but they loved the denominational aspect. Our folks lived greatly into district events, conference events. You had a strong United Methodist Women at that point, now Methodist Women. And it was most logical for us to move into a denomination that was very much like what the historical roots of that church had been. And of course, all the questions came up, but what's the difference, Alan? What's the difference? And the good news is I researched that, and I knew that, and I was part of the process in a lot of ways. And I discovered that the things that most irritated us about being in the United Methodist Church and why we overwhelmingly voted to leave, I felt like got corrected in the Transitional Book of Doctrine and Discipline. And those things were bishops who had no accountability and yielded power that they didn't have and made decisions that went totally against the discipline. That will not happen in the Global Methodist Church, because bishops are elected to terms. They can be removed from office very easily, and there's a system of accountability that I don't have time to describe tonight, or I will be over my time. But that was one thing. What really bothered us was our leadership that was leading outside the boundary of the discipline of the United Methodist Church, which you know, if you take the problem was not with the discipline, folks. The problem was with the adherence to, or lack thereof. And so that was corrected. The other things that allowed us to move seamlessly into the Global Methodist Church was what in the Global Methodist Church we call connectional funding. As you know, prior to disaffiliation, we disaffiliated in December. We were asked to pay 10% of our revenue in connectional funding. In the Global Methodist Church, in the North Alabama Provisional Annual Conference, it's now 2%. 1% goes to the general church, 1% goes to the local annual conference. I have some say-so in where that's headed, and I believe it will stay at that level. The denominational number is a static number. The local conference has a choice to choose between 1% and 5.5%. We've made a decision in our annual conference that it's going to be 1%. And I believe it will stay there until the convening general conference, which is going to happen next year toward the fall, late summer, fall. I believe that funding model will stay the same. So you're talking 10% versus 2%. And because we appreciate the connection, we appreciate paying into the connectionalism of ministry that happens around that. So there's the connectional funding piece that's a lot less. The other piece that makes that possible is that in the Global Methodist Church, there will be very little bureaucracy. I think at this point in time, the denomination has 7 or 8 full-time employees. 7 or 8 full-time employees. Our church moved into a denomination that left a denomination that had 10 or 12 boards or agencies that cost millions and millions and millions of dollars. The Global Methodist Church has no boards and agencies. The Global Methodist Church is a bottom-up ministry model. We want churches to live into who they are in the context of where they are and create ministry that best fits that context to the glory of God and the kingdom of God. And we don't want to get in your way of doing that. We want to allow you to have as many dollars as you can to do the ministry that you need, and we are not going to get in the way by saying you have to support all these levels of bureaucracy. He said I was the dean of the cabinet. That makes me a presiding elder. That used to be called a district superintendent. You might be used to that term. They're now called presiding elders. That's a better biblical term. It's a better way of looking at it. I'm a presiding elder. I currently have 18 churches to oversee. We're trying to keep that around 15. I will continue to serve my church full time. I will have oversight of pastors and churches on basically a very part-time model, but we don't want to clog the system with paying presiding elders a full-time salary with an office and all that kind of stuff. So we're going to use that model of part-time. We have a president pro tem of our annual conference. He's part-time as well. And that's what we're living into, and that's what we hope we can do for a long time, so that we eliminate the bureaucracy of what we felt was stagnating the work of ministry and mission in the United Methodist Church. So that's one of the other things that really led us there. Also is I guess the big deal for everybody was the trust clause. There is no trust clause in the Global Methodist Church, period, none. There's no way there can ever be one. The Global Methodist Church doesn't want your property. We have nothing to do with it. I would say, in all fairness, the United Methodist Church doesn't want your property either, because there's nothing they can do with it either. So, but that's what they leaned into, and that's what they did. We don't have a trust clause, and we don't even really have a permanent way to stay with us. You can join us, and if that shoe doesn't fit, then just let us know. Take 90 days like y'all are doing now and discern through the process that, hey, we made the wrong decision. Own that. That's not, that happens. You buy a lot of things that you don't like, you want to take back. We're not exactly as easy as Walmart to return your product, but, in 90 days, and look, the discernment process is not voted on by anybody. We just want you to take time to discern 90 days. If you choose to withdraw your membership in the Global Methodist Church, that's as simple as an email to Keith Boyette stating that you have taken a few days and time and prayer to discern your direction and you'd like to withdraw, and I'm saying in the next day or two you'd get a letter confirming. Well, actually it would take till the next Monday. The TLC would approve it and you would be released from that obligation. So we've tried to, the Global Methodist Church has tried to release all the strings attached kind of thing, and I think that's a very good thing. Another big selling point for Jasper First was the connection to the local churches in the area. To the sense of local churches. As I said, our church had lived into, back when there was district youth events, those kind of things, district events of all kind of things. And they wanted that to continue, and they wanted to know that there were other churches and local kind of connection to churches. And right now we have 163 churches in the Global Methodist Church of North Alabama. We think, if the same percentages work out, that by the end of the year, when all the disaffiliation has been voted on, we think we'll be around 200 churches in North Alabama. We basically have the same footprint as the North Alabama United Methodist Church does, basically the same footprint. There's no boundaries in the Global Methodist Church for churches and or pastors. We're free to, as a pastor, I'm free to go wherever somebody will receive me as their pastor. Churches can, like we have some churches, imagine just south of Tuscaloosa, that are in what was the old Alabama-West Florida Conference. They relate more to Tuscaloosa, and they've asked to relate to us. So we've placed them under a presiding elder in our area, but there's no real boundaries. It's fluid, and churches and pastors can serve where they're best fit. And so that fit us very well. And one thing, and a lot of things I could say, but one other thing that really appealed to our congregation was the sense of the collective ministry that happens when you're cobbled with lots of other churches and dollars and ministry efforts. That's been huge in our history, and we wanted that to continue, so we lived into that. Some emphasis about the Global Methodist Church emphasizes accountable discipleship, church planting. We've already planted. We really hadn't planted any churches. We've just taken large groups of people that came out of churches that didn't get the disaffiliation vote, and they've walked and they reached out to us and said, will you help us organize? And we've done that. Church planting is different these days. There's not going to be any more, we need to plant a church here, so we're going to put a pastor there and pay for it and just make that pastor go out and find people. We're going to let the laity drive where we plant the church, where we have new churches, I will say that. We've done that in Scottsboro and Florence, Oxford, and kind of sort of in Alex City. Had an interesting situation. They just peaceably divided Alex City first and made two churches out of it. Gave one of them to the Global Methodist Church and one of them to the United Methodist Church. And so that's how they disaffiliated there. There's, I guess one of the most satisfying things I get to do in my present job is we get to talk about the easier way to ordination and the leveling of the pathway and who's ordained. Y'all might not understand this, but forever a licensed local pastor was viewed a little less than. Is that fair, Jason? Weren't you a licensed local? Yeah.
Had the seminary degree.
Yeah, a seminary degree, but a licensed local pastor. Seen a little bit less than. That's the best way I can say it. Now, in August, when we have our convening annual conference, we're going to be able to ordain, at this point, 55 licensed local pastors, all but 2 of them, the elders in the church, which makes them equal in every way to Alan Beasley, who was ordained an elder back in 1986, and these young men, these men and women who, have given their life to ministry and will now have full ordination status in the Global Methodist Church. And we celebrate that. There's nothing better than for me to call somebody up and say, hey, your status is that you're going to be to be ordained an elder. So there's a lot to it. I could go on and on and on and talk about, the bottom-up driven mission model and that kind of thing. But I'll stop there. And again, I'll sum it up by saying for our church, it was just a natural flow into something that we've been for almost 200 years. And that felt really right for them. And I was determined that on whatever the dates are, the 10th, 11th, 4th of December, we were going to worship as a United Methodist Church. When we came back on the 11th, I didn't want anybody to see anything different. We have our place in Jasper. We do great ministry. We reach the community. We serve lots of needs. I didn't want there to be a great upset. And so we're not as spiritual as y'all are. We voted the night we disaffiliated to affiliate. So God bless y'all for being that discerning, but our congregation was ready. So I'll stop there, and I'll entertain any questions you might have of the Global Methodist Church, and I don't want to violate my time, because I can talk a long time. Yes, sir. Oh, he's got his phone and he's got notes. This could be dangerous.
Back in April. Do what?
He defined your profession. I don't know if that's good or bad or indifferent, but that's okay.
In April, I was made aware of section 912.3 in the Transitional Book of Discipline. I know. Now it is. Okay. In April, I was made aware of section 912.3 in the Transitional Book of Discipline and some restrictions, not a trust clause, but some restrictions which were placed on the local church if they ever decided to mortgage, convey, sell, buy, what have you. Mm-hmm. It's my understanding that the church that was seeking an amendment to that paragraph got it removed. To your knowledge, have those restrictions been removed on the local church?
The language of that paragraph has indeed been changed. So the Transitional Leadership Council received their recommendation, and they're allowed to make amendments to that paragraph. And I'm without perfect memory, because I'm old, I'm almost sure that we've gotten an email related to that. Now, I will say the spirit of that paragraph was so that there's not I'll call it a coup in the local church, where the laity and the pastor and maybe the presiding elder all aren't on the same page related to that. There was the paragraph related to permission.
Exactly.
And not to, and so the spirit of it was so that a group of lay people didn't try to mortgage, buy, sell property without the pastor at least knowing about it or signing off on it.
At first, it said the pastor had to consent. And then I was understanding they were amending it to say that he had to have knowledge of it.
Okay. But so I think they received that and changed it to say knowledge, yeah.
Okay. That's for all churches? It's not all the people in all the churches in the Global Methodist, and not just that particular church?
Oh, no, it's in the discipline, so
okay.
it applies to everyone.
Right.
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Yep. Any other questions?
I'll speak without a microphone, but tell us about pastoral appointments.
Oh, yes. I should have said that. So pastoral appointments are now collaborative in nature, which means you still would have a staff parish relations committee that would be given the ability to have conversation with any potential pastor that may come here. And then the SPRC decision is then relayed to the cabinet, relayed to the district superintendent, and then the pastor that came in to speak with you would have conversation with that person as well, and we want to make sure that it's a good match from both sides. So it is collaborative in nature, and there's no guaranteed appointments, which makes a lot of people nervous, and it's already been a little bit of I'll be honest with you, it's already been a little bit of an issue because there's no guaranteed appointments. And since we disaffiliated and we've joined the Global Methodist Church, we have a lot of pastors who signed off on the Book of Doctrine and Discipline, but they thought they signed off on a Baptist model. I'll just be honest with you. And they also thought they signed off on a non-itinerant system. We're still both of those. The Global Methodist Church is still itinerant, and it's not called, and we're not called. PPR committee makes a recommendation, and pastor agrees or disagrees or whatever, and the cabinet still makes an appointment, and you still have the right to say, it's not going to work on both ends, so we can't make the appointment. Okay, does that make sense? So it's collaborative. You would never have an appointment where you didn't get to meet with the person that was appointed to the local church. So, ma'am?
And have a voice in it.
And have a voice in it, yeah. Yes, and have a voice in it. I mean, you can say, no, guy stinks. Don't send him here. She stinks. He stinks. Terrible. Can't preach. Can't carry on a conversation. Yeah, don't send them. So, yes, you can. So, yeah, that's important. Appointments are still made. They're still appointed. There's still a cabinet. SPRC committees will make recommendations to the cabinet. Pastors will share their intent. And also, there's what is eliminated out of the appointment system is that annual SPRC decision to have to, declare, is your pastor staying or leaving? All the movement in pastors and church changes will be initiated from the local church level. So if you have a pastor appointed and nothing's going wrong for 10, 12, 15 years, have fun with a 15, 20-year pastor. We'll never come to you. Or well, I won't say we won't ever. We won't ever initiate a move unless you just absolutely have to for some reason. But we would come to the SPR, and we can't force that. We can't force any of that. So, other questions?
I might be loud enough. We're talking about the pastor's appointments. Now, if the PPR committee and the pastor who you kind of interviewed comes to an agreement, how is that influence going to be on the cabinet? A large influence?
Oh yeah, we'll try to honor that. I mean, why would we not? We want the best matches that we can possibly have. And so if we sent someone and both the church and the pastor agree that would be a good match, then there's a great possibility we're going to make that appointment. A huge possibility. I mean, why would we not? I mean, that's what we're after. We're trying to eliminate, this is your pastor. Doesn't matter if he or she fits you or not. It's who you're getting. And we're trying to eliminate that. So we're allowing the collaborative nature of it so that we can eliminate bad matches. So yes, we would honor that, I'm almost sure.
If you have a question, please go to the mic. The people online cannot hear the question being asked.
Uh-oh. Sorry about that. Yes, sir.
One of these, but just for clarity, how is the cabinet going to be established, or is it already established? How were they chosen?
So we had a transitional conference advisory team called the TCAT, which I chaired, and we had a nominating committee, and we nominated six presiding elders originally, and the TCAT affirmed that and elected those, and then the cabinet has made recommendation so there was originally six. 4 out of those areas got too big too quickly, so we had to separate those, and the cabinet made recommendation, and the council agreed to it. Yes.
Okay, and then also, will each of the cabinet members continue to lead a local church, or will they continue? Okay.
Unless they're in what we call senior status, which we'll call that retired in the UM system. In the Global Methodist Church, you can't officially retire. You can go into senior status. So we have 3 now that are in senior status that aren't serving a local church. But the original 6 are all serving a local church.
And you anticipate that to continue?
Sir?
You anticipate that to continue?
Yes, sir. Absolutely.
And then finally, how are bishops selected or will be selected?
That's a great question that nobody knows the answer to. The General Conference, which will convene in 24, maybe late summer, early fall, will elect bishops. There's no jurisdictional level of conferencing in the Global Methodist Church. So they'll be elected at the General Conference, and at that General Conference, it's going to be tricky how that happens because it's not determined yet how we're going to even send delegates to General Conference. And then when that's determined and we send delegates, how bishop candidates are going to get elected, or how many they're going to elect and how they're going to assign them.
And how they're going to be nominated.
How they're going to be nominated, and then if they got elected, how are they going to be assigned? And that's going to determine how many we elect. Because there's a great movement to have regional bishops and not local, I'll call it localized bishops. That makes sense? So right now, Scott Jones is a bishop. He covers basically the entire southern half of the United States and the Philippines and Cuba, something like that. And then Mark Webb is the other bishop that's active. He has the northern half of the country and the rest of the world. And then we have 2 bishop emeriti. And there's some feeling that we may stay in that regional mindset. And so until we get clarification from the Transitional Leadership Council as to how many we're going to elect, how they're going to be assigned, how they're going to be nominated, how they're going to be elected, my feeling, and this is just my feeling, I have no inside knowledge, is that will be determined at the General Conference, and there'll be some sense of special General Conference called to nominate, elect. I don't think that's all going to happen next year, in my personal opinion.
Last question.
Okay.
I'm sorry. John, I'm sorry. You want me to surrender my minute to you? Okay. As far as seminaries and local pastors' course of study, what seminaries are being thought of as being recognized by the global? Are there any seminaries that are not being recognized or not being encouraged to attend? And what kind of criteria are you all using for ordination? Example, could someone go to Samford and become a pastor within the global?
So the recognized seminaries, the Global Methodist Church, are Asbury Theological, Beeson Divinity, United Theological, Wesley Biblical in Jackson, and Ashland Seminary in Ashland, Ohio. So we have 5 recognized seminaries. Any of those you can attend and you'll get accredited, I guess. Currently, Wesley Biblical has opened up the course of study. And so think in terms of United Methodist course of study. The 55 that we're going to ordain, if they completed the first 10, they're going to be ordained a deacon. If they've completed all 20, they're going to be ordained an elder. So either we'll ordain elders and deacons by either seminary graduation or completion of course of study, and theoretically, over time, we eliminate licensed local pastors.
Okay. I'll surrender my minutes to John.
Ask a question. You may have already answered this, and if you have during your discussion, I apologize.
That's
but
okay.
As far as pastor assignments in the event that we were seeking a new pastor, will we be provided with a slate of potential candidates? Thank you very much. That's it. Thank you very much.
Yeah, hopefully. Don't hold me to that right now. Okay. Because, Mike can tell you this. I'm about as honest and transparent a person as you'll ever meet, because I don't think I need to hide things. But where we are right now in the Global Methodist Church in North Alabama, there were more churches that came out without a pastor than pastors that came out without a church. Does that make sense? So we're having to work really hard to get all of our churches filled with a pastor. And we're having to be very creative. So hopefully as the pool increases and we have this alignment with seminaries and we can start feeding from the seminaries, that will be a little bit easier task. Right now, it's pretty difficult. I'm just being honest with you. So, okay? Is that it? Thank you.